Hello and welcome to a very exciting inaugural first episode of the Speero Sideshow podcast. I'm joined here today by Mansour, who will be learning from a lot. I thought I'd first of all just talk a little bit about this new podcast that we're doing. So, as I say, this is the very first one. We'll be doing this weekly. And the focus will be growth experimentation. So anybody who's seen anything that either myself or Ben LeBay do on LinkedIn will have a little bit of an inkling into this. But growth experimentation is the term that we're using to refer to what we believe is the evolution of experimentation. Experimentation has always really been pigeonholed into A/B testing and conversion optimization. And we firmly believe that there is a really good opportunity now for experimentation to step out of those shadows and to take a broader strategic role within the business environment. So growth experimentation refers to a more holistic, strategic way of using experimentation to drive innovation and growth across different business areas. There are some fundamental aspects to it. One being that experimentation does not need to mean A/B testing, and therefore it doesn't need to be confined to areas where A/B testing is possible, like that being the front end of websites. The other principle is that it doesn't necessarily need to be confined to one particular area. So A/B testing has always really been something that's been used in the pursuit of optimization of digital content and front-end experience. But experimentation as a broader concept can help you innovate everything. And the third part is really about the strategic aspect of it. So experimentation should and can be used to develop really big ideas and to help grow and pivot the organization in different directions. So this podcast and each episode of it will dig into different aspects of the journey towards growth experimentation. And we'll look at how businesses can adopt that approach and start to embed experimentation and coordinated learning across different parts of the business and start to bring together marketing, product, customer, and different areas within that framework. So yeah, hopefully you'll join us on that journey each week as we speak to people around the industry around how they're getting on. Today we're talking to Mansour. Makram has a fascinating role at Intuit, which I'm going to let him describe for you. But I'm sure you'll agree it's really in line with what we're talking about in terms of growth experimentation and a fascinating set of experiences to dig into. Makram, hello. Thank you very much for joining the podcast.
Of course, thank you for inviting me. Really excited to be with you and with the audience and to talk about this very important topic. You are really hitting into a critical issue here, which is a little bit of confusion, not really well understood. So I'm really happy that you are double clicking on this.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Well, let's kick off. And what would be great is if you could just give us a bit of an outline of your background and the fascinating journey that you've been on through your different roles and what you're currently focusing on Intuit.
Sure thing. Yeah, so background, I have a PhD in electrical engineering. So, I started in RFIC semiconductor design, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and but building simulation tools for RFIC design. And that's where, with my PhD advisor, we started a company called Berkeley Design Automation to solve how customers like semiconductor companies can simulate these high-speed circuits. So we formed a startup company called Berkeley Design Automation. I started supporting customers like Fujitsu, going to Japan, Broadcom, Qualcomm, and things like that. Did that for almost 4 years, and then eventually the company got acquired by Mentor Graphics. It's part of Siemens. Then I worked at Intel using my software. So I went from developing the software to a user of the software. So at Intel, I was using the software to design these high-speed circuits. Then I worked at National Semiconductor, looking at hardware and software design. It's really interesting. In that role, I got exposed to system-level design and how we can really understand where the chips are being used and try to drive innovations upstream to us. So because we were like always doing the traditional ways, and the consumers of these chips were not thinking big, were not able to think how this new technology can open up new possibilities. For example, I was looking at wireless power charging technology. Everybody now knows about it in the phone, how you can put it on the charging. We were thinking, okay, what else can we do in that space? And this is where experimentation comes in different forms. So one business development person told me, hey, what if we use that in hearing aid devices? So I said, okay, what's going on here? Why is that important? Well, that's where we talk about the problem statement leading. So if you think about hearing aid devices, typically, elderly people need that. Very hard to take out the battery every week. The price point of the battery is expensive. And it lasts for almost 10 days, then you have to buy it again. A very sweet spot for a wireless power battery charged inside for the hearing aid devices. So we rapidly tested that. We went into the lab with a small inductive coil and the battery and the IC that we have been developing at National. We were able to rapidly prototype something. And then the BizDev person helped us identify one of the top 3 hearing aid manufacturers, Starkey. So we went to that meeting. We told them about this business opportunity. We demoed that charging capability. They saw it live. We walked out with $1 million check, proof of concept, go and build it. We're going to make a business line out of it. So this is where, again, different concept of testing here. It came up with a problem statement and we were able to demonstrate that. Then I moved to Texas Instruments. Texas Instruments, I looked into the online design tools for TI. The problem statement there is that semiconductor design is like a black magic. A very hard analog semiconductor is very hard for everybody to just use it, but it is becoming very consumer oriented. Everybody, hobbyists doing robotics, doing these LED lights, they need to incorporate electronics in their stuff. So how can we make it easily accessible? Similar to, we're going to be talking about experimentation, requires a lot of specialty and expertise, especially how do I do the MDE effect for experimentation and things like that. So I'm going to be using analogy and correlation between the two. Traditionally with Texas Instruments, for us, we had to have a middleman and double middleman, like distributors, experts who are helping the end consumers. So we wanted to just cut the chase and provide an easy access to the consumers. And that's where the online design tools were very helpful. So the online design tools, anybody can come in with very simplistic interface. We do all the complex math behind the scene. You are able to put your requirements and get the results and even do online simulations for them. That really opened up the whole market. It makes it more accessible. Then I worked at LinkedIn. So I moved, and it's interesting the story of my switch from semiconductor to social, moving completely out of semiconductor. What happened, one day I was the number one conference in electronic design automation. It's called DAC, Design Automation Conference. It happens in the Moscone Center in San Francisco. So I was attending that conference, and Moscone has like 2 main branches, Moscone East and West. And we were going to one of them, and on the other side, on Monday morning in San Francisco, I see the Apple Developer Conference was happening. This is before the Spaceship Campus, and now all the Apple Developer Conference is happening there. So I'm walking to the conference, and I look, all the press is pointing on Apple. And here, not even one camera is pointing towards the Design Automation Conference. So I started wondering why. like many of the innovations and technologies are powered by these chips, the advanced technologies that are there. And, as many of the tech, I'm not undermining anything, but just, one point of view here is that many of the, like we go and build triple integral math. We are really doing the high complex 18 nanometers, 9 nanometer technology chips and innovations is really happening there. So I said, what the heck? Why is no press is pointing our way? So I looked at the news, what's coming out from the Apple, and then the big thing was, oh, now you can copy and paste an iPad. Again, I'm not undermining it, but this is where it tells you the difference between front-end user interface and all the technology that powers it in the behind. It really gets undermined. So I realized that was like the light bulb moment for me, that I need to be at the front of it.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference. So that was like the moment for me to change. Anyways, I worked at LinkedIn, and LinkedIn experience was really amazing because I got to do 3 stints. One, developer productivity really helped me understand the infrastructure of LinkedIn, how developers work, how we optimize the infrastructure. Then I managed LinkedIn's experimentation platform. It's called T-Rex. And that opened up the world of A/B testing. T-Rex is a homegrown experimentation platform at LinkedIn, so really exposed me to the. It's like, when I got become the product manager for the LinkedIn experimentation platform, like I got bombarded left and right. Everybody has asks from us, and this tells about the maturity level of experimentation and the need of experimentation. I had more than 2,000 weekly active users logging into the platform in different ways, needing different things. Setting up an experiment, getting readouts. Like the CEO of LinkedIn would log in to see how is it going. And I got to see how LinkedIn operates in a completely experimentation mindset approach. I'll give you some examples around that. And the third stint is about, I worked with the LinkedIn Premium team at the bottom of the funnel in customer engagement and retention. Many cases, we are all using LinkedIn, and you can see how new experiences, like yesterday, I was looking at LinkedIn feed. It shows me for you and the news. So I was talking to my wife, hey, are you seeing that? And she said, no, it's not showing. I am a more power user of LinkedIn than my wife. So it looks like I am in the experiment group and she's not. So everything, like there's a lot of experiments that usually are running on the platform. I remember one big thing when I was there too. I'll give you 2 stories or 3 stories even from LinkedIn. One, we had someone join from Instagram, and at that time, stories on Instagram was very popular, the Instagram stories. And then the idea was, hey, we should do LinkedIn stories. And rather than, executive saying, no, that's a bad idea, let's test it. This is the whole mentality of everything we can. No, it's not about expert opinion or anything. Let's just test it out. So we rapidly prototyped that and launched the LinkedIn stories, and we measured the metrics, and it wasn't as viral as we thought it would be because LinkedIn use cases are different than Instagram. So that went down. I supported in use cases like a business card scanner for Japan. We realized in Japan market, it needs, there's the business cards are very important. And again, it wasn't as viral. So it's that acceptance. And this is where the true test is about in companies. Is leadership, is the culture and the leadership afraid of failure, or do they, it's part of doing business? That was really amazing. And in my opinion, the highest maturity of companies are companies who realize that not 90%, 80% is not going to work, but we still have to do them because that's your chase to really find that golden opportunity. I'll pause now if you have any questions so far, or I'll jump to the LinkedIn.
No, let's go through into it, and then we'll get into some of the questions.
Yes, so interesting the Intuit story, and it also highlights the LinkedIn power. LinkedIn is built to help with networking and building relationships. I didn't. So for me, at that time, Jeff Weiner, the previous CEO of LinkedIn, was on the board of Intuit, and Intuit, of course, also like many of the growth, big focused on experimentation. So I got asked to give a seminar to Intuit about experimentation, about the experimentation platform. Also, Intuit is building its own experimentation platform. So I gave a seminar and I built the relationships. So I got to meet some of the leadership of at Intuit, and I kept the relationship, talked to them and everything. And then a recruiter reached out to me afterwards. Hey, Makram, we are building experimentation. Would you consider joining us? And so that's how I made the switch to Intuit in the go-to-market tech team. The go-to-market technology team is the central team within Intuit who's supporting all the go-to-market teams across QuickBooks, TurboTax, MailChimp, Credit Karma, and all their go-to-market activities. So I managed the experimentation platform for Intuit. It's called IXP, the personalization platform at Intuit, and Campaign Manager, as well as the web platform. So all of these are the customer experience optimization platforms. So together they work amazingly well for marketing, whether it is for website marketing, which is the pre-authenticated experience, because websites are not anymore just a static website that everybody sees. There's a lot of experimentation that is happening, personalization, targeted offers, and all of those that require a lot of mixture of data and different platform tools, data platform tools, to make them happen. So that was my primary experience. And in the last 3 months, I switched roles. And now I joined the emerging products group at Intuit, which is like an internal venture incubator for Intuit, really looking at completely new lines of business and experimenting with them, 0 to 1. And I can double click on that topic afterwards.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much. So I'm sure anybody listening will agree, a really fascinating history and journey. I guess my first question is, in both the previous roles, you've been responsible for generating and building a platform, an experimentation platform, which I guess in one sense means the technical platform, but it can also mean the center of excellence. But what has been the challenge? What have been the challenges in driving adoption of that platform and trying to encourage the culture of experimentation through those organizations? And what are the difficulties, particularly with maybe trying to encourage coordinated experimentation through different teams and through different areas of the business?
Great questions. So I'll answer them in pieces. Challenges in building a platform first. At the end of the day, Intuit is not in the business of building an experimentation platform. So in many cases, the burden of proof for the team, because many of the companies start by getting an external vendor solution. But that's where, so for example, early days of Intuit, we had vendor provided experimentation tools, but that's where you start hitting the wall, the limits of these tools, whether it is capacity, whether it is customization and integrations. So for many valid reasons, we start to realize that this is not scaling for us, for our needs and our integration needs and all of those. So we make a call that, hey, we need to start investing in building our own custom solution, especially if it's a competitive advantage. Experimentation platform and capabilities becomes a competitive advantage for the company. Because if you do it right and you are able to do it at the vision that you are describing, then you are quickly failing, you're learning, always learning more than all of those. So that was the decision to make it happen, to bring it in-house and build it. But of course, in theory, it is great as long as you have the right skill set to execute and be in par with the vendor tools and even ahead of them. Otherwise, it will cause frustration to your users, internal users. Hey, why am I having to use mediocre interface, mediocre capability, and not just the other one? So this is where the challenge is in both.
I'll just quickly point out for anybody listening as well. I've seen Intuit's internal experimentation platform, and it is incredibly impressive. Most people who have probably ever been exposed to any kind of in-house platform that a dev team have tried to build might be rolling their eyes and thinking, "Oh, well, it's not going to be very good." It is very good. It's you could sell it commercially. So yeah.
Exactly. I'm not in any way hinting that, as you mentioned, very proud of the work and the capabilities. Thank you for your outsider opinion on this space for sure. And similarly for LinkedIn, that's why I told you 2000, LinkedIn, the top most used internal tool is the experimentation platform. And that tells a lot in terms of, the need and its capabilities. So that's where the companies invest for the best. They go and hire the best and build the platform, because the expectations, as I mentioned, is not to be in par, but to really push the border, do a lot of integrations, seamless workflows. Because experimentation, when you think about A/B testing, is not the end. It's a mean to an end. In many cases, we're going to be talking about these. Even when you mention CRO, it starts to become like, I am doing experimentation just for the sake of experimentation. It is not. Experimentation is for the sake of learning, is for the sake of growth and all of those. So if people they're not coming, people say, hey, you should measure how much time people are spending on your platform. No, I don't want to spend, I don't want them to spend time on my platform, actually. They need to be spending their time doing their job, and as fast as possible come to my platform and leave, rather than, so vanity metrics starts to become a very important thing.
Yeah.
So, and that's where the integration is very important. And that's why I was managing the web platform, the personalization platform with experimentation. Because why are you experimenting? Where do you start in an experiment? Well, I start in the website. That's where I'm administering the website. I'm doing the changes, and I want to launch an experiment. So it would be bad if they go do something there and then they drive to IXP. It's like, the way I describe it to my team, it's like going to like the government office here. You go to the first window on the first floor, I submit my permit, and then they tell you go third floor, second window, submit something, bring me a ticket and come back here. Like, this is a bad situation to be in. You do the website first, you do the changes, then you go to the experimentation platform, you get the ID. Like, they don't talk to each other. That's like the worst. That's what was happening before, because we were having multiple vendor tools. Mm-hmm. And we wanted them to be all hand in hand together in a meaningful workflow.
Yeah. And have you been able to, there's been a recent-ish trend in the experimentation industry for warehouse native A/B testing platforms. Have you found that the internal platform approach has had any benefits there, that it's given you enhanced abilities to tie together different data sets or different aspects of the customer journey natively with the platform that you built?
Yeah, exactly. This is where the competitive advantage, and this is the really key point, because if you think about any of the marketing or go-to-market activities that we want to do, especially if it is pre-authenticated activities. Pre-authenticated means, before visitors sign in, our top of the funnel teams are really, we have all of these millions of visitors coming to our websites. And we want to offer them, ideally, we want to know who they are, what's their intent, what they're looking for. And then make it easy for them to see what they're looking for, rather than them having to go and chase it and look for it. So this is where the personalization is very important. Mm. But how are we able to personalize if we don't even know their guests? We don't know them. So this is where experimentation and data, and if we're doing a targeted offer, it's going to also involve our pricing platform. So all of these things need to be coming together in synergy for the team who is setting up that experiment, so that it is not a 1 month mundane kind of effort. If we're going to take a month to do an experiment, like we're putting, like, I love how you keep telling me, putting the horse in front of the cart. It really needs to be very fast so that they can just prove that hypothesis, get the learning, and then scale it. If the tools are not talking to each other, like not even like talking about setting things up.
Yeah, great. Okay, great. And then I think the really interesting thing is your transition from that experimentation platform product role into emerging. Is it called emerging products?
Exactly, emerging product group.
Yeah, and so this actually kind of real mirror of exactly what I was talking about right at the beginning. That there is this opportunity for the concept of experimentation to transcend and step out of its current pigeonhole, which is in A/B testing of front-end content and experiences, into a more holistic approach to experimenting business innovation and business growth. And so you've kind of practically made that jump yourself in terms of your career, where you've gone from exactly that A/B testing content to the idea that actually here's a potential new business idea that needs growth, and experimentation can come from anywhere. And I'm guessing it means a lot more things like iterative prototyping, and that sort of stuff. So just how have you found the change there, and what are some of the learnings from your previous experimentation world that are now benefiting that new challenge?
Great question. So I'll tell you how it led me to that, and I'll also answer the other part of your question, which was the center of excellence. So in the first half of my career at Intuit, really focus on the platforms talking to each other, integrated with one another. And the other part was about center of excellence, like you mentioned. Because we think about, when it comes to the practice, it's people, process, and technology. Even if you have the best technology, if the processes are still, bureaucratic or something like that, that's not going to be well. We need to change the processes, make them adapt to the experimentation system, the operating system, the way you describe it. And the other one is the people, the skills. The way I describe that, if you give somebody a very advanced machinery and you don't train them on how to use that machinery, don't blame the system. Blame that they're not supposed to be using them. If you have a fire truck, for example, and you can't ask me to go and drive a fire truck. It needs to be proper training so that you know how to drive a fire truck. These are not toasters at the end of the day. So garbage in will take you garbage out. Toaster, toaster is simple. Anybody can just press a button, take it out. But if it's a fire truck, they could cause major disasters, especially for companies. So don't blame the experimentation platform. You need to know how to train the team. So this is how I think about people, process, and technology. And because we're trying to push to have everybody in the company, whether it's at LinkedIn, Intuit, anywhere, to be experimentation, especially on the online controlled experimentation, which is like the really advanced things where you have, that's where we talk about the black magic, the experts who knows how to set up what type of experiment, how to set it up, how to make sure it is working. There's a lot of intricacies there, and we're giving that to the hand of anybody. So they need training. So I was managing that program of, educating the workforce on the proper experimentation techniques and the how-to and best practices. And I started realizing some things in there. So it's very important, number one, to have a center of excellence and not only think the tool is going to solve it for you. The number two is silos. Even at LinkedIn, we call that institutional memory. The situation is that many teams are effectively doing very similar things, and every year or so they keep doing the same things again and again. Not much of knowledge share is happening. I'll give you one example. Given especially what I have observed in my position at Intuit. Intuit is interesting because we're B2B and B2C. So you have QuickBooks, MailChimp, we have Credit Karma, and TurboTax. So it's multiple businesses. So for you, in my position, I'm the center of excellence driver across. So I would see what's happening in experiments. And not everybody knows what's happening in experiments. So the learnings is not being shared as much ideally as I want. And that's another topic we're going to talk about afterwards in terms of there is a need for how can we open up because experimentation is all about learnings as well. How do you learn from failures? How do you learn from the past? What do customers need to improve? Well, if these learnings are only kept to the experiment owner or to that small team and they're not being shared, that is too bad because, why do you have to repeat the same thing or not learn from it and build on it? And if it's something working, shouldn't we be spreading the knowledge so that everybody knows about it so that they can try to do it?
Yeah. I think I know we've had this conversation before, but I've got my favorite analogy at the moment is the Apollo space mission. So I kind of talk about this a lot, but most businesses really sort of think of experimentation in terms of experiments, the individual experiments that are being run. But if you conversely sort of think about the Apollo space missions, what really happened there was that there was a really bold and audacious goal that was achieved through the coordinated program management of a lot of different experiments. And so the whole program itself can be described as experimental, which is different from saying that there were some experiments going on. But I think one of the really key things that drove the success was the coordination of the learning. So if you think about it in simple terms, JFK said, let's get somebody to the moon and back within 10 years. And somebody had to sit down and think, how the hell are we going to do that? What are the different things that we need to go and test and we need to kind of understand? But all of that had to be done in such a way that it was integrated and that the different parts of it were learning from each other. And there's a really interesting story around how the experiments on rocket propulsion would create vibration in the rocket. And anybody creating any sort of machinery, telemetry equipment or anything within the rocket would have to know exactly what that vibration frequency was. And as the rocket propulsion was developed, the frequency would change. So anyone developing that kind of equipment had to be on the same trajectory and understand how that frequency would change. So they had to work together very, very closely. And that's what kind of gives rise to my sort of mantra, which is that experimentation is an operating system. The word experimentation should mean the systems management and the program management that is bringing all of that stuff together in the pursuit of strategic goals and things like that. So what does an operating system mean to you in the world of experimentation? Like what's
exactly nicely said. I love how you describe the Apollo space system program and how it's so funny you mentioned how JFK mentioned that. So this comes really nicely to the emerging product group and what I do at Intuit right now. For big companies, even when I was with Texas Instruments, at one point of time I was working with the CTO of Texas Instruments. Because if you think about, is the company, number one, set up for growth structurally or not? Because if you think of a company, like an enterprise company, which is with lines of business who are really focused on revenue, business growth, metrics, meeting their numbers kind of thing, then already the system, the structure is already set up for near term, tactical, not strategic. So the company needs a CTO office. Why do we need a CTO office, for example? It's to look at the technology, to look at what's the 2-year, 3-year roadmap. If the line of business horizon is like 1 year with clear goals to meet numbers and things like that, who's doing the 2-3 years program? There's a lot of technology. Look at AI now, how much it's disrupting and how much it's opening up possibilities. So some team needs to look at it from the technology angle. So when I was, for example, with Texas Instruments working with the CTO, we were connecting with Stanford University, with UC Berkeley, looking at what is cutting edge technology, what is coming out of these colleges in the semiconductor, in all these technologies, and bringing it to the labs, prototyping, trying it out, doing process technologies, getting it ready for a good maturity level so that the product teams can pick them up. So that was, at Intuit, we have that under the CTO office. It's called the Futures team. And they're really focused on the technology aspect of it, really looking at multi-year and how we can be ready for the technology. And this is where I feel that strong companies are going to always be strong, because they're thinking near and long and all of those. The structure is set up correctly. Now, on the other hand, the emerging products group. Emerging product group is looking at it from problem finding, from opportunity, because you can either take a technology and take it to market, but you're doing it wrongly, in my opinion, because you don't push technology on people, you push solutions to problems to people. So this is where our team is all about problem finding. We're finding, where are the big problems, and the big problems could be of two types: known problems and unknown problems, unspoken problems. So spoken problems, everybody says, for example, in the business, small business world, small business owners don't have time. They're always busy doing many things. They need help, kind of thing. And they can't find employees, for example, in the Bay Area. So that's known. An unknown or unspoken problem is something that it's not yet known, but it will become, nobody's speaking about it. Yeah. So this is where the emerging products group is all about experimenting, learning quickly, rapidly. There's no A/B testing in the old-fashioned way. It's about how do you go about discovering these problems and unspoken problems. Yeah. And then once you have a problem, last point, then you can do all kinds of fancy stuff about solutioning. You can do a problem solution tree. You have many options to do a solution out of them.
Yeah, and in that exact scenario, obviously A/B testing isn't necessarily possible or even appropriate, but I feel like a lot of the business world has kind of talked itself into the idea that if you can't run an A/B test, nothing else is good enough. So what are the kinds of methods of validation and testing? What does testing actually look like when you can't run statistically controlled A/B tests? And is there still a level of rigor that you can have with the way that it's approached?
Yeah, a lot. Actually, when you start thinking about it, you'll realize there's a lot. And the way I think about it is, on paper, it's all about evidence finding. It's not going to be statistically significant to the nth degree, the ways data scientists talk about in the right-hand side of the spectrum, which is the A/B testing. But it's all about evidence. How are you making decisions? Are you making decisions? You wake up and you say, hey, this is how it is. The hippo, with the experimentation world, we call it the hippo. Or it's about finding evidence. In my opinion, and the way at Intuit we do it is through the customer's world. So we go and talk to customers. That's what we call follow me homes. We do follow me homes with the target persona, and to really listen from them. Why do we call it follow me home? Because at the early days of Intuit, that's how the founder did that. He would go follow the customers and just not intervene, observe them and see what's happening. That's like and when you do it many times, you're going to start seeing patterns and opportunities. So that's like better than nothing. So if you start with on paper, it looks great. You've done some research, my gut feeling, you did like a AI research, you did Google DeepMind research, and there's an opportunity here. That I call on paper evidence. Then the next step would be do follow me homes. And if it's a marketplace, you do it on the different sides of the marketplace to really understand, is there a problem for both? How painful is this problem? So you are really, trying to discover how, and then you go and update that. Now you really need to be scrappy on how you're going to validate your solution. So first, we really identified there is a problem, and this problem is worth solving. There's so many problems in the world, we don't need to solve all of them. Only the ones that are important enough and worth solving. And they are always happening. But sometimes the problem is not necessarily always happening. For example, taxation is not something that is always happening, but it is severe enough that is really, big pain. So you can see that levers. Now it's all about, different types of techniques you can do it. For example, you can do usertesting.com, testing on your target audience, show them experiences, whether it is like a Figma experience. And you can really trim it down. And I love how you always describe journey, how you can do, for example, if it's a Wizard of Oz, you do a concierge service. There are many kinds of experiments. What is most important, you need to know what you're testing. When you have your business plan, you need to list down your leap of faith assumptions, the LOFAs. What are these LOFAs that your business plan anchors on, and if they're failed, this whole thing fails. So you need to break it down to the minimum LOFAs, and then go and figure out how to validate those pieces that constitute your business. And that's the trick.
Yeah, fantastic. I could ask you another 100 questions, but we're very nearly out of time, so we're going to draw it to a close. But that is so interesting. Thank you very much. And I think you're on really at the kind of forefront and cutting edge of a bit of a movement. I think that we'll see that experimentation will hopefully start to take on these more broader kind of growth roles. So yeah, it'd be fascinating to hear how you get on as you develop. So I'm sure we'll bring you back at some point in the future. But again, thank you so much for joining. And to everybody listening, I hope it's been interesting. We'll be doing this weekly, so please tune in again next week. Watch this space for more guests. We'll produce a list of the upcoming guests at some point shortly. But Makram, thank you. Everyone who's joined, thank you very much. And have good weekends.
Thank you.
Thank you.